Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to be here as always, and it is great to be back. I was out last week because I got married and we went to the beach to get away from people. It was very, very effective, but I'm glad to be back in the saddle and working again. There were a whole lot of happenings that happened last week that I obviously was not able to cover. And because of that, I probably won't be able to cover them going forward. But if there's something specific that happened last week that you would like my take on, then sound off in the comment section down below, and I'll pick a few of those out and retroactively cover them, especially now that I've had plenty of time to think about them and come up with my unique perspective on them. That said, for my first video back, y'all provided me with some very low-hanging fruit in one of the videos that I had prepped up for release while I was out, and that is on my current carry rotation. And in that video, I said that I use the appendix carry position exclusively, and that you should basically throw out all the rest of the carry positions because they're wrong. So in today's video, I'm going to cover why I believe that is. And also, there were many questions about how I accomplished that with such a wide spread of guns. And then, of course, we'll have to cover the blatant falsehoods that are perpetuated by people who are scared of the appendix position. That and more after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by XS Sights, and they have been a longtime supporter of the mission here at the VSO Gun Channel. Years I've been working with this company. They are my preferred manufacturer for tritium night sights. You need to look no further than the carry rotation video. All of those guns were wearing XS sights. I typically gravitate towards their big dot sights, but they offer a whole bunch of profiles out there for people who don't have a clue about how sights are supposed to be used on pistols. Right now, they have a Labor Day sale going on because the thing about tritium night sights, because they contain regulated material, they ain't cheap. The next couple days is going to be 25% off site-wide, so make sure that you use that to great effect. And special thanks to XS Sights for making today's video possible. I think that whenever we discuss the concept of carrying a firearm for self-defense, that everyone will agree that the most important aspect of carrying a firearm for self-defense is actually carrying the firearm. And it is my opinion that the appendix carry position fixes most of the arguments and excuses that many people will use for not carrying a firearm. There are some exceptions in there for like certain types of female dress. For instance, if you're wearing a little black dress, then the appendix carry position probably is not going to work for you. But just about every other scenario out there can find some accommodation for the appendix carry position. The second most important thing, in my view, is accessibility of that. So not only have we brought the tool with us, but we have the ability to get it in a timely manner. If we were assigning attribute points to the different carrying positions, then under the versatility and accessibility column, the appendix carry position would get a solid 10 out of 10, whereas some of the other positions wouldn't. And when we consider that, we have to take our minds out of the linear flat range that most of us shoot on all the time and consider that when we're talking about self-defense, we're talking about gunfights. And the root word of gunfight is not gun, it's fight. And I don't know about you, but I have been in plenty of fights in my life. And I've only ever been in one fight that didn't go to the ground. So what I want you to consider, for instance, is having access to a weapon in various states of not on your feet. And when you do an analysis of a couple different positions, then all of the other positions will find yourself, in a more compromised position than the appendix carry position. So to prove yourself to this, lay on your stomach and have someone put a little bit of pressure, maybe your wife or girlfriend, somebody who weighs less than you. Some of you that may not work for, and I'm sorry. Have them put a little bit of pressure on your shoulders directly over top of you and try to get to a 4 o'clock position or a 5 o'clock position and pull that gun. It's really easy to do it when you're upright and your weight isn't distributed already on your underside. And you go to try to lift that up. If they've got a little bit of pressure, again, a little bit of pressure, it's much harder to draw that weapon. Versus if you put that weapon underneath of yourself in this position, it is really easy even with extreme amounts of pressure, to worm your hand underneath of yourself and pull that weapon out. Also, if you find yourself in such a compromised position and you have to covertly draw the weapon, then it is very easy to draw the weapon from underneath of yourself, versus if you are trying to draw it from this position back here, then you kind of have to do the flop like a fish thing, and it's very conspicuous. Likewise, if you find yourself on your back, it's much easier to get to that weapon if it is in the front than if it is on your back and you're a high hauled on that pistol. Also, I know that this is sort of a cliche thing that's said that if that gun slips too far back, it can damage your spine. I personally know people who have damaged spines from landing on their firearms. So that is not just some internet myth that's been made up, that people do actually get injured by falling on their guns in the rear position. So if we go to one of the sides, for instance, if the gun is located in the front, then regardless of where your arms are pinned or not pinned, either of those hands can reach forward and reach your appendix position, and you can draw the gun with either hand. That also works when we consider the whole injured hand drill thing, where you have to use the holster to reload the gun and all that sort of stuff. The appendix position, again, fixes all of those considerations for access and versatility over those other positions. Next up, concealment. Now, this one is going to deal a little bit in the difference in the sexes and how we kind of operate. And if you're sensitive to this sort of thing, then I'm sorry, you're at the wrong channel. But when it comes to carrying the front and the back versus on the sides, carrying the front and the back is vastly superior to carrying on the sides as far as concealment is concerned, because whenever you carry on one side, you create a bulge, and that is an asymmetry. Humans are really great at picking out asymmetries. It's just how we operate, and you don't want to draw excess scrutiny to the area where you're carrying your firearm. And when we're talking about carrying in the front and the back, you might think, well, we aren't providing a profile, and because we're not providing a profile, they should be roughly equivalent, except for when you consider the statistics of violent crimes with weapons. And I'm not saying that women don't commit violent crimes with weapons. I'm just saying, statistically speaking, the vast majority of those crimes are committed by men. Heterosexual men will not look at the belt line of another man. We will not do it. It is not something that we do. It is something that we are programmed from early childhood to divert our eyes somewhere else. It's just how it works. We also typically do not check out other men unless we're specifically looking for weapons. We typically do not do one of these. If you've already passed somebody and your gun is carried in the front and they do one of these, well, it's already past them. Carrying in the front eviscerates that detection possibility, especially when we're talking about women. The complement of the situation that we're already talking about with men detecting men carrying, women should never carry at the 5:30 or 5 o'clock position, because I guarantee you that as you have passed, a man has turned around and checked you out from behind. And that might stroke your ego a little bit. That's fine. I'm just telling you that it happens. And if you've got a gun poking through your yoga pants, they're going to see it. And that streak goes both ways. I've seen women turn around and check out men too, particularly those of us who squat a couple times a week. Suggestion for you guys out there. I'm not saying that women don't do it too. I'm just saying that by and large, when you're considering that sort of thing, the types of clothing that are being worn by women that print a fair amount more when we're talking about that particular region of the body and trying to keep a hard piece of metal from poking through it. Now, as a dude, I almost always find myself wearing pants. If I'm not wearing pants and I'm in public, then I'm probably going to jail. So I almost always wear belts. There are some exceptions, and there are some products out there for carrying when you're wearing like gym gear and stuff like that, like the Alti Clip. They don't pay me to say that or anything like that. And none of the products that I'm going to show you here quickly are placed products. They don't pay me to say this sort of stuff. This is just stuff that I use, although they could totally pay me and I would take their money. The first most critical piece of equipment, if you are carrying with a pair of pants and you can wear a belt, is some kind of expanding belt. This is a Core Essentials belt, and this is a ratcheting belt system. And this allows you to tie the belt tight at a moment's notice and then loosen it as well. So when you change stance, say you're going to walk a ways, and then you're going to go into a restaurant and sit down and have a meal, and you're going to sit there for, 30 minutes to an hour and a half. It allows you to quickly reach down, and because the belt will be under tension as you sit, it will simply adjust itself to the proper dimension to more comfortably fit your weapon. And that allows it to slide past the hips and ride up a little bit and be more comfortable, so that you can ride your shirt over it more readily to conceal it. You may have to change your seating stance a little bit to make that more appropriate. But again, this one's by Core Essentials, vital piece of equipment in my guesstimation. The next most important thing when it comes to carrying a firearm in the appendix position is the proper equipment. Now, there are plenty of things out there, but the thing that I gravitate towards, and I don't know who makes this holster, to be completely honest, are the soft loops. And these allow the holster to move around in orientation on the belt. So usually I have one that's hard fixed, like this one doesn't spin very readily because I've got it wrenched down. And that's if I want the weapon to be very static, if I plan to be walking upright for long periods of time. And if I'm going to be changing stance, then I want the thing to be clipped on this one that allows it to slide around and shift with my changing stance. Unidirectional, like I can't pull up on this and it'll come unloose. I have to literally take it off to do that. So in my guesstimation, that is a really important aspect of holster construction, is the actual attachment method. Because that leads into our last segment, which is complaints and arguments against carrying in the appendix position. And I would say the one that is the most prolific, and I would argue probably the most valid of all of them, is, oh, well, it's uncomfortable. And this is mostly voiced by guys that are a little bit more rotund, shall we say. And I can tell you, as a fat who has let themselves slip a little bit in recent years as far as their physical fitness is concerned, I'm 5'11", 235 pounds, that this thing that I just showed you, the combination of the belt and the holster construction, fixes those concerns for you. If it doesn't, then I would like to bring to your attention that you may have a larger problem. You may be getting too big. And that is a completely separate issue, a different video for a different day, but statistically speaking, that problem might be more serious for you than concerning yourself with assault from a deadly weapon. Just throwing that out there. If that offends you, then I'm sorry. This is the wrong channel for you. I'm here to help you. And this is me being your friend telling you that you might want to visit the gym a little bit more often. And that's coming from somebody who's a chunky boy. Which also feeds into one of the other major arguments that I've heard, which is, oh, well, I'm pointing that gun right at my femoral artery or right at my giblets when it's in the holster. And that should not be the case. If the belt, holster, gun, body is all properly fitted with your clothing, then you shouldn't be pointing it. It should be pointed at nothing at all times. When we're standing straight up and down, it should be pointed straight past all that stuff. Shouldn't be a problem. And when you're seated, it shouldn't be pointing at any of that stuff. It should literally ride out more if you have that stuff properly tied down. If it's too tight, then sometimes it will point to that stuff, and that's a problem with the rest of the equipment that you've selected. The other thing about that could be considered is you might have too much on top, and that could be causing that holster to cant in, pointing it at your pelvis. And that is, again, a body problem, not an equipment problem. You have to fit the equipment around your body, and then at a certain point, the equipment can no longer fit around your body, and you may have to consider altering something along the way. Those same issues exist in all the other carry positions. You're just less cognizant of how much you are flagging yourself. You ever seen somebody who hasn't really practiced very well do one of these, or try to holster where they can't see in the back and what they do to their pelvis when they can't quite reach, or if they've got a little bit too much weight on them or something like that. I promise you, it's happening in those situations too. And oftentimes you're flagging yourself in a much worse way in those positions because you can't see what's going on. You're at least cognizant of what's going on up here, and you can readily adjust it if it's making you uncomfortable. So the arguments against concealed carry in the appendix position when it comes to those things, I think, are from people who tried it a couple times, found it, excuse me, spit all over myself, need a wipey, found what they were currently using to be uncomfortable and just didn't think about it again, and or have read too much into and haven't considered the other aspects of flagging themselves as they're walking around, and have not balanced that with the positives that we've outlined in this video of carrying in the appendix position. I want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a comment and let me know about it, because I'm sure that this will continue to be a topic that a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about. Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you on another video here at the VSO Gun Channel.